Switzerland, known for its beautiful mountains, Roger Federer, and tax evasion. 2,000 years ago, this place was better known for starting the Gallic Wars. Now, I'm not gonna sit here and pretend that one, this view isn't amazing because it is, and two, the Bello Gallico isn't one of the greatest pieces of literature. But what most don't know is that it's also one of the best pieces of propaganda ever written. Since I'm in Switzerland right now, I'm mainly going to be using book 1, which is set here, to describe the different ways Caesar uses the bello gallico as a propaganda weapon to further his political ambitions. Here's the context. Caesar is a well-known politician at the time, and he's just finished his term as consul, which is basically the president. However, he's drowning in debt as a result and facing corruption charges back at home. Thus, when the Helvetii threatened to encroach Roman territory, Caesar sprung into action, motivated to please his soldiers, pay off his debts, and most importantly, bolster his popularity. So here I'm going to give you a step-by-step guide on what Caesar does to manipulate his readers. The first thing you notice in the Bello Gallico is how simple and digestible the writing is. I mean, he literally opens with, Gaul is a whole divided into 3 parts. Here, Caesar's not trying to impress nobility or to win the Pulitzer Prize. He's writing so that everyone in Rome, even a half-blind plebeian, can know of his accomplishments. As a politician and as a general, Caesar relies on public support to maintain social relevance and feed his army. And with that in mind, you can argue that Caesar's seemingly primitive wording is the perfect response to such an exigence. On a larger scale, this style of prose has resulted in Caesar having some of the most famous and quotable lines in history. For example, I came, I saw, I conquered. I came to Rome when it was a city of stone and left it a city of marble. And of course, the earlier example, Gaul is a whole divided into 3 parts. Another propaganda strategy Caesar does to further his agenda is write in third person. He presents the Bello Gallico as an objective battlelogue from the perspective of a neutral bystander, when in reality it is full of bias. For example, Caesar constantly glorifies himself and his swift decision-making skills, with lines such as, he made speed to leave Rome and hastening to further Gaul by as rapid stages as possible, and, alarmed at his sudden approach, the business of crossing the river, which they themselves had accomplished with the greatest difficulty in 20 days, had been dispatched by Caesar in a single one. Another way Caesar sneaks bias into his writing is by presenting the Gauls as uncivilized and threatening, with lines such as, there was no doubt, he observed, that the Helvetii were the most powerful tribe in all Gaul, and a warlike tribe, unfriendly to the Roman people. Granted, I'll admit that the Helvetii are among the most justifiable of Caesar's Gallic War campaigns, but when he invades Britain in books 4 and 5, he's purely doing so for political gain and personal glory. Lastly, Caesar straight up lies to his audience, because what are the Romans going to do? Search it up on Google? Walk 500 kilometers up to Switzerland to see for themselves? The most obvious example of this is when Caesar inflates the population of the Helvetii to make his win seem even more impressive. He claims that there are over 368,000 Helvetii, when in reality it was less than half that. And throughout the Gallic Wars, there are over 60 examples where Caesar estimates the population of an enemy, most of which are grossly exaggerated. Even today, Caesar's version of the Gallic Wars remains the only primary account of the event, meaning that everyone had to take his word for whatever occurred. Caesar knew this, which is why he took so much artistic liberty in describing his campaigns. But to Caesar's credit, it worked. It wasn't until after World War II when historians started questioning the credibility of the previously reputable and legitimate Di Bello Gallico. Yes, it took society until the invention of McDonald's to clock onto Caesar. And during his lifetime, the Bello Gallico earned Caesar the popularity he so desired, the money he needed to repay his debts, and most importantly, consolidate the power he needed to then become a dictator. 2 millennia after his passing, the Gallic Wars persists as one of the most influential works ever written. It serves as the magnum opus of Julius Caesar, who in turn is one of history's most influential figures. The same words that were studied in ancient Roman classrooms are the very same words I read in my AP Latin class last year. Interestingly enough, the propaganda methods I described are the same ones future emperors spent centuries emulating and are still used by politicians and presidents today, highlighting the timeless influence that defined the Gallic Wars.